Namaste yogis. This is Adrienne.
And Natalie.
And welcome to another episode of How Yoga Changed My Life, a podcast. Today we are really excited to be joined by our new friend, Rubina. Hi, Rubina. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Welcome to the podcast.
I'm excited to kind of get to know you. So you currently reside in Los Angeles area.
Yeah, I'm just outside of Los Angeles in the Northeast area, close to Pasadena, Altadena.
Very cool.
And I grew up out here, actually. This is
wow.
I'm from here, born and raised.
Nice.
Angelino, it's rare, I think.
I was going to say, most people are like transplants for sure.
Transplants, yeah, a lot more transplants, but yeah.
So give our audience just a little taste of who you are.
Yeah, so besides being an Angelino, my parents are from India. They're immigrants, came here. I was born and raised here. At the core, I'm really a yogi. It's interesting. My mom would say, like, you were just born with it. Like you were just always living that lifestyle. So I believe and I follow that practice basically, that yoga is not something that I just practice on the mat. It's really how I live and how I breathe. And just growing up in an Indian spiritual household, yoga, mindfulness, meditation, they were woven into my daily life. And my yoga journey has been deeply rooted in that heritage. Everything I share comes from my lived experience.
That's amazing because most people, like I say this probably 10 times a day to different clients. It's like you were taught how to read and write and do math, but you were not taught how to breathe or move your own body. But then looking at you kind of did. You were given those tools at an early age.
I really was very lucky that it was a living tradition in my home with the culture and the philosophy. But still, I also say that we were not taught how to breathe, especially with stress. And that's why I think breath work, pranayama, is like such a big, important part of the practice for me to share with my students, with practitioners, because we lose that connection to ourselves so easily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as far as kind of growing up as a yogi, right? Like usually we say, when was the first time you've ever experienced yoga, right? And for you, it's a lived experience. You've always lived it. But do you have any kind of point that you could go back to either in your childhood or teenage or even adult years where you're like, wow, like this is my first real experience?
Yes, absolutely. So as a high schooler, a teenager, even though LA is pretty progressive and had everything in the little town that I lived in, there wasn't like yoga and I didn't belong to a gym or anything like that. It was like high school, go and study. And I was sitting in the library and I came across this book, How to Do Yoga. And I just was drawn to it. I took it home. It was one of these like black and white pictures from the 70s. It was not a manual. It was just, this is yoga for beginners. And I just started to flip through it. I was just so like, I think I was looking for that. I wasn't really athletic in high school. And so here I was on the carpet of my floor, early 90s, it wasn't a practice. It wasn't something anyone was talking about. Doing the poses, reading the book, looking at the images, doing the poses. And it just became something that I just felt like I was really coming home to. I felt like for the first time, oh, I'm moving my body in the way that it wants to be. And it was home.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah. I mean, I think that now, do your parents, were they practitioners of yoga?
Mostly, I think meditation and breath work, that was a thing. My mom definitely did yoga with me as I went on my journey, but I don't know if it was really happening. There were stretches. There were some things that was like, oh, your grandmother always says when you have a bellyache, you should do this and that. So there were things, but it wasn't like yoga is a separate thing. It was just like, oh, you're having this is the solution. This is going to be helpful, or things like that. Kind of like how we have like home remedies or grandma's remedies that come down.
Yeah.
It was like that. Yeah.
That's so cool though, because if you think about it, like we didn't have that, right? Like it's like when you were stressed out, my mom would give you like a paper bag to breathe into just so you wouldn't hyperventilate, right? Like
my mother was a big fan of Get Over It.
Yeah. Get over it. That was the majority of my life too. Unless you're bleeding out your eyeballs, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Tough love families.
I had a book. You've just reminded me. I don't think I have it anymore, but I had a book of yoga remedies, and it was like bellyache and headache, and some of them were even specific diseases, and
That's very cool.
they were It was an Iyengar based book in the sense that uh, there were lots of props.
Yeah.
So
And so you were like, forget it. I don't know
no,
any of
I
this.
just I do
Because she doesn't know
remember.
props.
I
She's
don't know
Ashtanga.
props.
She's more Ashtanga. So like we always joke back and forth that like, you know, she's like props. Yeah. I mean, I'm just not used to them.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
When students ask me, they're like, "Do we need a block for this class?" I'm like, "Yeah, if you want one." But it was
Yeah.
interesting, and I do remember using it. But they weren't. It wasn't a sequence, and they weren't poses that you moved. It was like you talked about. Well, you know, if you have a headache, then put the pillow here and put the blanket there, and you know, open your chest and you put your neck in this position and stay there and breathe.
That's very cool
Oh,
though.
yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
So
That's
did
kind of
you,
how it was at
Mm-hmm.
home, I guess. It was like,
Yeah,
yeah, you have this? Oh, do this. Oh, I
yeah,
already told you. You know, it's not like everyone had patience, right?
right.
I already told you. You already know this is the way that
right.
grandma does it. So
Right. That's very cool. Now, are you an only child?
I'm not. I'm the older child.
Nice.
I have a
Very
younger
cool.
sister.
Oh,
Yeah.
very cool. Does she live in the area still or no?
She is in the area. She's kind of traveled a lot more around and then come back. But yeah, we all are still local. My parents still live in the same house that I was basically born
Oh,
into. So
wow.
they came here, they settled
Oh,
in the late 60s, early 70s, was like, you know, starting their family and they're in that same house. It's kind of
wow.
amazing.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. That's so cool. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how your journey in yoga has more of like kind of your passion, your career, kind of not just the lived experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So besides that was like, okay, I'm doing this yoga thing, right? Just it was fun. It was always something I did because I felt good.
Mhm.
So throughout high school, throughout college, I would go and practice yoga in studios, in gyms, um, and just kept doing that because it was my passion and it really kept me sane. I think it kept me feeling healthy, kept me feeling strong. I had, you know, been a runner at some points, but I had to balance it because, you know,
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this
yeah.
can be hard on your body and this so I just kept doing this and everywhere I went, like, yoga teachers would be like, "You should teach. You're really you know, your form, your weight, like, there's something about it. You should teach, you should teach." I was like, "No, it's just for me to practice."
Mm.
"No, thank you. Thanks. I take the compliment, you know, I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. I'm getting,
Right.
good check marks from the
Yeah,
teachers." But
exactly.
I didn't really think like, "Oh, I'll go and do this." And then we went into lockdown and the pandemic.
Mm.
And I remember that was one of my biggest concerns was like, "Oh my god, the studios, oh my gosh, you know, all the
Yeah.
places I go to work out. What am I gonna do
Yeah.
for 2 weeks?" Even that first initial, we thought it's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right,
Those
right,
2
right.
weeks passed and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening?" I mean, I actually froze my family business, which I was running and education and all this stuff. That was
Wow.
like, "Okay, put that on the back burner," but all of it was like, "What am I gonna do?" And so, I found an online yoga, you know, teacher's training,
Mhm.
basically 200 hours. And I thought, maybe I should do this. Not because I thought I was going to teach it, but I thought 2 hours on the mat every day. That's the guarantee. I remember hearing it in the
Yeah.
advertisement. Okay, that's what I'm going to be doing. So 2 hours on the mat, great. Sign me up because
Yeah.
I'm going to sit at home and be stir crazy and not go to yoga.
Right.
And so
Finding
that's what
that
Yeah.
I,
online community
Oh,
too,
yeah.
like, cause it's part of it.
yeah,
It's like you go to a studio, like you could practice in your house, but it's that
yes.
camaraderie and that
Oh,
community.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I didn't mention actually in my 20s that, you know, when I was working, I had gotten into a car accident. I was in a very intense work situation. Work-life balance wasn't really there. And I remember having this car accident going and, you know, I had injuries in my wrists.
Mm.
And of course, they ask you, what do you do? Oh, I work at the computer. I do graphic design. And, you know, everything is very intensive with the mouse and trackpad and
Yeah.
drawing. And then, of course, yoga was, you know, that big part of like my only work-life balance maybe at that point in my 20s. And they said, "We're so sorry. You're probably gonna have a carpal tunnel and you'll have to go for surgery.
Mhm.
And you may never be able to do yoga, or you might have to change careers. Maybe computer isn't gonna be for you." And I was
Wow.
just stunned. I was young adult, just
Mhm.
starting my career, just starting all of that stuff, and they're telling me it's over for me. And those were the 2 pain points for me, like, I'm not gonna do my passionate career,
Right.
creative, like, and I'm not gonna do yoga? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I remember probably for 6 months going through the physical therapy and that really intensive and the fears and the pain, all of that stuff, icing, heating, everything. my boss was fabulous. He kept me on. He's like, we're just going to give you lots of breaks. Take your time. Be careful. I learned how to mouse with my left hand, my non-dominant. You
Nice.
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I started carrying groceries, pouring milk, everything with my non-dominant because my right was the larger injury. And so
Mm.
I really listened to my body again. And I think it was that yogic upbringing that was like, there's something beyond just what they tell you can do. There was always this part of my life that was very resilient, in
Yeah.
that age. And so I was, after 6 months, on the mat.
That's
And sure enough,
amazing.
I
Nice.
think I healed because of yoga. I'll still
Absolutely.
say it. Like, I
Hmm.
just really was very careful. I'd walk in every time the teacher would say, any injuries? Oh, me. I have these wrists. They're really bad. So I'm not going to do weight bearing. And I had great yoga instructors. They walked me through, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you try that? And it sure enough built my strength and everywhere else,
Hmm.
allowed that to heal. And I never went back to physical therapy after. I was like, oh no, it's my body, my path,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
journey. And no one's gonna tell me you can or can't. And that was the start of it, I think, in that young adult phase of my life. Like, no one's gonna tell me what you can or can't do. And so I've done
That's
a lot of
amazing.
rule breaking and bending, my
Good.
own. Yeah.
That's really good. I mean, and even like, so now, how are your wrists now? Do you still suffer with any issues?
Sometimes, like I
Mm.
can sleep, I get a crick in my neck and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, everything is tight today.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff will come up, but it's just knowing that it's an old injury, or anytime I have like any inflammation in my body, it shows up there.
Sure,
Your
sure.
body's talking to you, right? Your
Yeah.
pain is telling you something. We all know that, we hear it. And so it's just a
Yeah.
matter of really getting that personal. I think yoga gives that. It gives you personal insight to yourself, to your journey. And
Absolutely.
I teach trauma informed care. I do teacher trainings for children's yoga. And that's a big key. It's always, it's teaching the yoga instructors to keep an eye out on like what people need, being
Yes.
sensitive, but then also letting them own their experience. And I'm a
Hmm.
real big believer on that. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that you teach kids because that's what I do. I used to teach kids a lot until we moved down to San Antonio and it was COVID, and then I kind of every once in a while get to teach kids and it brightens my day. But my kids are older, so I'm not in the school districts teaching anymore. But like that was one of my loves every week. We would have an after school yoga program in Chicago and I would go and teach the kids after school. And it was like, just seeing the way that they would interact with the practice itself and how they would come in and say like, man, like I'm having a really bad day. Like my parents are divorced and I have to pick who I need to go with for
Mm.
Thanksgiving. And I don't really want to go with dad, but I really want to go with mom. And I think I'm going to hurt dad's feelings. How do I handle it? And I'm like, all right, well, let's talk about it. Let's think about it. Let's breathe, let's sit silent. And it's just amazing that a little bit of sharing of yoga knowledge to a child, what the difference maker is in their big
Yeah.
life, and how they handle things and their self-confidence,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
All right. So I always have this conversation with people and I'm not going to, I'm going to do my best to make this not seem bitchy. Okay.
Where are
Okay.
you going?
I
Now
know.
I don't know where
I
the
know.
conversation's going.
So I know exactly. No, trauma informed. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
tell me your perspective on trauma informed work that you do, because I know like my experiences with trauma informed have been very disheartening. Okay. And the reason they have been is because I find that a lot of the teachers that I've talked to about trauma informed yoga, it feels like we're almost putting other people's traumas ahead of other people's traumas as more important, or we're limiting our language based off of the thought that maybe someone in the room won't like the word straight, right? Like I've had a
Yeah.
teacher one time say like, don't use the word straight in your leg. And I'm like, why? I'm like, what else am I supposed to say? I'm like, I'm doing the best I can. I'm like, I'm not saying like belly or like bikini body or, I'm not coming up behind someone. Like I feel like overall I do a good job, but how can I get better? Or explain to me kind of your perspective on what trauma informed is for you.
So I think once, when I got trained I did trauma informed mindfulness, and that was a big part of it, was realizing that, we think meditation and stress relief, it's good for everyone, but people can be really triggered to close their eyes. And that was a big realization for me, even just understanding that. So I think that once I went through all of that experience of becoming trauma informed and understanding that, and, learning from those professionals and, psychologists and mental health specialists. It's a lens that I put on. It's just like when you go out in the sun and you got to get your sunglasses so you can see clear, or if you need reading glasses or whatever, right? So it's like putting on that trauma informed lens of seeing that somebody else might not be having the experience that I'm having or that I'm intending for them to have. So like you're asking for from a perspective of an instructor or trainer, right? So I kind of give a blanket statement in the start, and I don't scare people because people might have trauma that may be so deeply buried
Right.
that you don't want to poke at it and accidentally saying, "Oh, I'm going to be really careful." And then all of a sudden they are uncomfortable because you're giving space for that discomfort to come
Right.
up, right?
Right.
So
It's
it's a fine
it's a,
line.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's what I
Yeah.
struggle with. It's like, I, I believe kind of what you said before, right? When you're talking about like, hey, my parents said, you know what to do, right? Like
Yeah.
you have the skill set, you can
Yes.
do it. So it's having I like how you said like the lens or the glasses that you put on.
Yeah.
My perspective is like, I look at everybody that comes in as like completely capable to do what they need to do on their mat that day for them, right?
That's exactly it. And that's exactly what I remind them. That,
Good.
okay, I'm not going to say we're going to have a trauma informed yoga class. No, it's like my introduction is, hey, guess what? This is your practice. So I'm putting it back on them as just a reminder. We already know it.
Good.
And you're right. Like when I did yoga, when I was injured, my body already knew it. I may not have known it here to
Mhm.
put the words to it until I had the experience. But just like this is your mat, I always tell them these four corners that you're sitting in, that's your world.
Mhm.
I'm just offering you a suggestion. You're welcome to follow me. I can offer modifications. You can do what feels right to you. Stay as long as you need, get out as quick as you feel, whatever it might be. Like
Right.
those gentle things that kind of just keeps giving them the ownership of the practice because it's their practice, right? So
Absolutely.
if I just start with that, just reminder, this is your practice. And then, breath work was something that came in really like during my time of pain and injury. It was understanding the breath work. Maybe I did the poses up until then.
Mm.
And then I think breath work is a huge entryway to that understanding the trauma, understanding the pain, and moving through it, really shifting through it. That sometimes the movement can't get you there, or the quiet meditation, the mind may be too busy. So, breath work is that entry point that's really big and important for me. And I train on that as well. So, it's like, giving them all of those at the start of the experience and just holding the space, I think, with intention, but also checking into myself. Like, am I really being as present and calm as I could be? Right. Because
Mm.
energetically that vibration is moving around the room when you're teaching anything, like
Yeah.
you're teaching kids, right?
Yeah.
If I walk in with a busy head, I can't get them to calm down.
Right.
There's no way, right?
No, you're
So
right.
it's just knowing that it's a full mindfulness, a full, encompassing experience, I guess is what I'll say, more than just a practice,
I
the full
really,
thing.
okay. So now you have convinced me that there is a real thing of trauma informed
Yeah.
because I really, in the yoga community, I have been really impacted in a negative way by it because I feel like it's setting people like I don't like the word when I listen to podcasts or and they say trigger warning. I'm like, oh God, like that makes me panic,
Yeah.
and I don't even have triggers like somebody else might have, but
Yeah.
it freaks me out. So I'm like, it's more about, are we like babying people, right? Are we
Yeah.
actually giving them the authority and the power within themselves, right? It's like, hey, you got this. Like I'm here. I always say like I'm a flashlight or I'm a tour guide, right? Like I'm
Sure.
here just to kind of flip the switch and
Yeah.
say, here, maybe go over here or try this, right? But
I love that.
yeah, but
Yeah.
like I want them to feel powerful, not powerless on their mat.
Agreed, agreed. And I think you're right. And maybe it was the way that trauma informed stuff got trained to you because when I do the training, I see these other techniques that are like, don't say, don't say bottom, don't say like,
Right.
Yeah, and
all these
then
different things. Don't say
right,
these
and the
body parts.
list,
Don't,
the
don't say
list.
hips. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I get it. But I think of it as you have to be in tune. Like
Yes.
you training the yoga instructors to get in tune. is a whole experience. And one time I was doing this teacher training and somebody was having a trauma experience just because we were talking about trauma. So I was like, oh gosh, what am I doing? Like I have to change my training. And
Mm,
I had to be even more sensitive to the fact that even the teachers, have sensitivities.
yeah,
So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like when you walk into a restaurant and you have an allergy or a food sensitivity or something, right? Like as soon as you say it, there's like alarms blaring around. And that doesn't make the experience that you came there for, right?
exactly.
You're trying to have a meal. And
Right.
so I feel like even, maybe even allergies can be everything is an emotional, spiritual experience. And so in order for us to heal it, we have to kind of go around it carefully, but not tiptoeing
Right.
and not also, the person who's leading shouldn't feel, oh my gosh, I'm so restricted to these words.
Right.
Then what experience are we gonna I can see your point. Like
Yeah.
what
Right.
experience, when you think about this, can you provide for people on the mat?
Yeah.
And maybe that's just it. We need to provide a safe place for them to have whatever emotional experience they are
Yeah.
having, because we can't,
Yeah.
it's impossible to edit everything
Oh,
you
yeah.
say,
Yes.
to guess ahead of time every
Mhm.
potential word or pose or offering that could, I mean, you just don't know.
You just don't know.
But we can
Exactly.
offer a safe space when whatever's happened. And sometimes it's just moving, you
Mhm.
holding so much stress in your body.
Yep.
You quiet your mind, you move your body, and like we joked about the last podcast, there's a lot of crying in yoga, but there
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
You've taken
Mhm.
time, you've let go of all those distractions. Your mind is quiet, your body is moving, it's relaxed.
Mhm.
And you can be surprised by the emotion that comes to the surface, which is great. It's not the yoga instructors, in my opinion, it's not the yoga instructor to try to guess which word it is that may or may not bother you.
Right.
However, giving that person the space
Mhm.
to safely feel what they're feeling.
And I would even change the word safe to brave.
Brave.
Bravely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
I
I
like
don't
that.
think
Yeah.
we can make everybody feel safe. My language in class, I want it to be non-judgmental. I want it to be powerful. I want it to be direct. And I want it to be action oriented, right?
Mhm.
Like I use words like, stretch your arms up, right? Very
Yeah.
clear in like, where am I going with what body part and what's the muscle action have to be?
Mhm.
Reach, stretch,
Yeah.
lengthen. And so I feel like when you speak clearly to someone like that, right? Then I'm not saying, see if you can try and grab your foot, or if you can't grab your foot, then grab this. And I'm like, when someone says, see if you can, or if you can't in class, that already makes me feel like, well, I'm a loser. I can't do it. Do you know what I mean?
I go back to thinking everything is choices. So this goes to even a deeper practice for me is like that bringing a sense of presence and flow into everyday moments, right? So that's why I say I think that yogic principles and like going into living it, you're right. As a yoga instructor, it's more than just cueing that we're doing here,
Mhm.
right? It's more than stretches and what's happening physically. There's something that's happening in a bigger sense of life that's happening. And so I think that, I love this. I remember when I was training, it's not about touching the toes as your goal. It's
Mm.
what's happening on the way down
Yep.
to touch your toes.
It's
And
one of
I
my
think about
favorite
this
quotes.
often.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
it all the time because I remind myself some days I roll out of bed and I'm trying to get to the mat and stretch, and I have it right next to my bed. So I force myself. But I remind myself this that, my practice has to happen, not when I'm teaching, because I'm teaching, right? But
Mhm.
obviously, and I taught yoga nidra for a long time, like yoga nidra,
Love.
30 minutes, just
Mhm.
resting. And, that's why when we were talking about Shavasana, I'm like, oh, yes, that's the main thing.
Mhm.
It's that, really, I can't be having yoga nidra because
Right.
I'm keeping presence of the room
Sure.
and the breath and the body scan. And I, quite frankly, to be very honest, worry that I would fall asleep if
Yeah.
I just lay down and did yoga nidra.
Oh,
I
yeah.
lay down,
Mhm.
but I keep myself very, present. And so I think about that all the time that my yogic practice happens when I roll out of bed. As soon
Mhm.
as I place my right foot on the floor and how I go about, like when I look at myself in the mirror, my affirmations, all of this is part of my yogic practice. Then going back to sit down, my breath work, all of this is the start of my day, which I'd love to dedicate as many hours as possible. And then when I'm teaching, I'm there for their experience. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
so that presence of what I did 2 hours before is what I'm bringing them there. And
Mm,
so
I
if
love
I'm
that.
a
Mhm.
little cut off, like I know it. If I get a call before something
Mhm.
stressful is happening, I'm not in the presence of mind. And I'm going to say probably things that later on I'm like biting my tongue, like, why did I say you can't? Like you said,
Yeah.
so I just keep thinking it's a choice. It's a
Hmm.
choice. Everything's a choice. And I talk about this in life coaching because I do that as well. And in meditation, in mindful life, everything is a choice. Our life is made out of many little choices
Hmm.
that become big decisions. And that's our life. That's what we're living. And so I try to keep that constantly like I'm offering you these. And it
Hmm.
is this offering. The practice that they're coming to is an offering, it's an experience. And you have the choice. You can grab your ankle or you can grab your foot or,
Yeah. I like that.
right.
Options is a great way to handle things too.
Mhm.
I feel like
Yes.
that to me
Options. Yeah.
is like I say option to do this. Like I hardly ever say modification.
No, yeah, you
You know,
always say
Right.
I
option.
say
Yeah.
option to do this.
Variation. Yeah,
Variation.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because to me, like that, maybe that's my trauma, right? Is my trauma is being spoken to in a way that's limiting, right? Like,
Right.
well, if you can't do that or modify this because you can't do it that way, right? Or whatever. So
Yeah.
maybe that's like my trauma is, hey, don't put limits on people, right? Give them options, give them variations, and give them the freedom to be held in a space together, right? Like when I
Exactly.
went through one of my teacher trainings back in, oh God, it was like 10 years ago. And one of the things we had to do was, okay, you can't introduce yourself with like, I'm Adrienne, I'm a yogi, I'm a mom, I'm a personal trainer, I'm a wife, whatever, like no labels. Your
Yeah.
introduction had to be, I do blank, so others blank. And I was like, okay, how do I describe that? So I said, I provide a space so that others, or I co-create a space so that others can alleviate their own suffering. And
That's
that's kind
nice.
Oh.
Yeah, that's nice.
should I mic drop that one?
There you go. Mic drop.
Yes,
Mic
yes,
drop,
for
Adrienne.
sure.
Nicely done.
But it's true. Like
Yeah.
that's what I do, right? Like
Yeah.
I try that's what I try to do. That's what I try to do for my students. And what you said really resonates with me because you can tell a lot of times when a yoga teacher doesn't have a personal regular practice of either movement, meditation, breathwork, mindfulness, or all of the above. You can tell by the way that they teach. You know, they'll teach more on an ego standpoint. They're not paying attention to all the students. They're offering postures that might not be in the student's practice right now, but it's in the teacher's practice. Or, like the teacher can do back bends galore,
Right,
but you're
right.
sitting in a room with people that can't do back
Yeah,
bends.
people who are relatively new. Yeah, I think we've all been in
Such a
those
good
classes.
point.
And
Yeah,
you're like, what are
absolutely.
you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, recently I was having a discussion about how like modern yoga techniques and studio protocols, and I felt like I was getting caught up in some of that, and I understand, the intention of like making sure, everything is running smoothly, right? But I also feel like it's important to really honor like this is something that's a sacred system, right? That
Mm-hmm.
like you are more than just coming and teaching someone even to stretch, I would say, because just, living that mindful lifestyle, having that inculcated and then knowing that you're bringing that forward is so important. It's not a set of techniques,
Mm-mm.
and you can sense that with those kind of teachers. You're like, okay, they're not in that flow. Why do we call it flow? It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's living in you, and it is that kind of a
Yeah, it just
ancient
becomes
philosophy.
acrobatics.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. It does
Yes.
become
Yeah.
acrobatics or
Yeah.
like an ego show of like, look what I can do. Look what I
Yeah.
can do, you
Oh,
know?
yeah, yeah, that really makes me ugh. I mean, I can do a lot, or there's times in my life where I used to do a lot, and I can do a lot, and I love, like, you feel accomplished, like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I can do these things with my body," and it's great to teach people, they feel accomplished and they have that mastery, but without losing the full essence or forgetting, like,
Yeah.
"What are we doing here?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
practicing with reverence, and reverence is not just to the actual yoga practice, but, like, we're in these magical beings that, you know, understanding like how we were even birthed and come here, these miracles and like living that's
Hmm.
yoga, right? The principles of it. And knowing that is something you carry through, like that's the real value I feel. And people, I mean, it's great if you're getting a workout and you're getting in shape. All those things are great benefits,
Right.
right? But it's
But
something deeper.
then I think that's the biggest thing too, is that because, you know, once yoga kind of came to the West and came to the US and it's been commodified and it's been, you know, franchised and copyrighted and patented and all
Yeah.
this BS, you know, it's like what we're missing is a lot of the heart of it. Right? Like the elements of
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, you could go to your yoga mat and practice for an hour and be peaceful and loving and kind, but it's not just that hour, it's the other 23 hours.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I was taught meditation at a very young age in my home, and it was like, this is just a percent of your day that you're dedicating to this, and this has to, you know, expand. And it makes me laugh actually when you were talking about like, you know, the West and all that. I don't know if you've heard the um, comedian Zarna, her name is Zarna Garg, and she talks about, you know, oh, yoga is, you know, yoga in the West, yoga went to the West, and people are rushing around
Oh,
to
right,
get
right,
with their
right.
yoga mats. She
I
jokes
have
about it,
seen
right?
that.
Yeah.
It's
If you're
hilarious.
rushing to yoga,
Yeah.
you're not doing yoga. You're not doing this right.
You're missing the point.
You're
You've missed the
missing the point.
point.
I
Missing
know.
the whole point. Like,
Yeah, if
yeah,
you're rushing to
exactly. It's
yoga,
not.
you've missed the point.
Yeah, it is a practice, but it's not just a practice.
I'm
It's
certainly
really
guilty
that
of
way of
that.
being.
Yeah. I think all of
Yeah.
us
Me
are.
too.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
No, it
interesting
happens.
too.
It
It
happens.
happens.
Yeah.
And it's the reason I think that for me that yoga is so enjoyable is it is a contrast to the way I live the rest of the day.
Mm.
And rushing to yoga is like the perfect example of it, the contrast between
Yeah.
the time on the mat and the rest of the
Yeah.
day.
And then how do
Yeah.
you teach people in a 60-minute or 50-minute class or whatever long class that, you know, hey, if you're feeling a certain kind of way when you leave, just pull out your breath, right? Like
Yeah.
just tap back
For
in.
those of you who can't see, Adrienne just pulled her breath out of her pocket.
Out of my pocket, right? It's like just
Yeah.
make that conscious decision, right? It's consciousness. It's being aware of what's going on. Like both Natalie and I teach Pilates. We teach private personal training sessions, like strength and all that stuff. But like when you put someone on a reformer or on the tower or some piece of apparatus for Pilates, and now they're like laying on their side or they're laying on their back or they're, you know, not in a normal standing or sitting position, it's like they're completely disassociated with their body. It's like lift your right leg up, and it's like their left leg. I'm like, no, the other leg, right?
Yeah.
But there's this disconnect in the majority of people. I'm not saying everybody, obviously, but like the majority of people are walking around up in their heads, right? And they're just living actually in like kind of the amygdala, the back of the head, right? They're all of this thoughts and craziness and this worldly chaos. And then it's like, but as soon as you start to breathe and you hit that prefrontal cortex and you start to calm down, you're now present. You're now aware.
Exactly.
And that is a brand new space
Mm-hmm.
for many, many, many of
Yeah.
us, a brand new space.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I just think it's just something that's important. Like when I have taught at a bunch of different yoga studios, I've taught at different clubs or different gyms, and you know, like as far as yoga, the capitalism and the business end of things, like you either get a yoga teacher who opens a yoga studio and things are awesome and she's really grounded and things work out really well. Or, you know, you have somebody who really loves yoga and wants to make money. So they open a yoga studio, right? And it's like the contrast of like what you see and feel and then how long these places
Yes.
live and kind of, again,
Absolutely.
where is it rooted? And then how do you as a yoga teacher take out the, well, why isn't this class at this number, right? Like you should have this many people in this class at this time frame. You're not hitting your numbers, you know? And how do you kind of go back and forth with that? Like, have you ever had those kind of experiences yourself? Like, how do you help other people kind of navigate that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always think of it as my goal is to help the other person reconnect with themselves, right? So
Mhm.
helping them connect with themselves, honoring the roots of these practices while making it accessible and meaningful for everyone. It's like that, the summation. And yeah, do we have this many poses in there? And, sometimes less is
Mhm.
more, right? It's kind of like that mindfulness practice of like little, but often, like just do a little
Mhm.
bit and do it often. Keep practicing,
Yeah.
you'll get
Mhm.
this. And so, especially if you can do it, like, when you're one-on-one with somebody, that's the best thing is, like, you really get to personalize it with them
Mhm.
and go through that journey. But, yeah, in a class of, like, being judged of how many people are showing up or how many it's all the same thing like we have with social media. How
Mm.
many views, how many likes, what? That is
Mhm.
not building your life, and I was just telling my teenager this recently. It doesn't matter, I don't get paid on my likes, like, I gonna
Yeah.
go back to my client list and see
Yeah.
what's actually paying our bills, right? So,
True.
that kind of concept is like, well, it doesn't really matter. That's not what's building the practice. That's not what's healing people
Right.
is the number of people or how many poses I have or how far they're going, how many are in shoulder stand or not, or you know what I mean?
Right.
It
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
right that it's that. So it's like, just I don't know. It's that same principle of honoring this practice, making it
Mhm.
accessible and meaningful for everyone, and helping them connect to what it is for them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like both sides of that.
So I want to get into a little bit about your career now. So since you've been a yoga teacher and went through the training kind of and COVID, right? Where are you now?
Yeah. So even before COVID, I was teaching in the classrooms and teaching mindfulness with arts education. And so bringing that balance and then yoga came into the picture of bringing that. I mean, I really was. I think I didn't finish my story at the start, but like I was really like, no, I'm still just doing this TTC because I need the yoga for myself. But then
Mhm.
the yoga studio, the school that I trained under, they're like, you're coming and you're teaching right here for us. And actually you're training our teachers. So it's like it
Wow.
really flipped into that. So I am available in studios, mostly online because they're all spread out all over the place. And I like to have my own space to do this in.
That's great.
And it doesn't matter how many people show up in that case. It's like I'm not under the pressure of like who's in my on
Yeah.
the mat around me, right? So I think that that's been really a relief for me. I do have a lot of private clients and I do a lot of life coaching. And so this becomes part of it. And sometimes that life coaching looks like it's more mindfulness or it's just
Mhm.
breath work,
Sure.
but yoga is part of it. It's like yoga is part of it because it's the bigger thing. We may not always be stretching in a traditional yoga sense, but I do have a lot of private clients that I do like a high-end client coaching that still want to do yoga as part of
That's
it.
great.
So,
That's
yeah.
great. So when you were a kid and you said like, oh, meditation was part of like growing up for me, what
Yeah.
kind of meditation do you do when you were little?
The first meditation I learned was mantra meditation. So we were given, this is your family mantra, and you're going to
Mm.
practice this. And you won't believe it. I was 6 years old. I was
Wow.
expected that you're going to sit down 40 minutes one time a day, and then it became 40 minutes twice a day. That was a lot for a
Yeah, that's
small
a
Wow.
lot.
child, right?
That's a lot.
But it was
Wow.
in the
Absolutely.
family, and we did it together. And then it
Mhm.
was also, this is your private practice. This is a time for you to do it yourself.
Wow.
And it was just I don't know. I don't have words for it sometimes because maybe it was so young, right? But that was a way of knowing where to go. And yes, my life has had lots of ups and downs, lots of different stressors. And it comes back to that. It comes again and again back to meditation. And then I learned breath work
Mhm.
to help activate that. That was more in my college years with the stress and then going into the adulthood, starting a family and all of that. Then
Yeah.
breath work really became the key. And I still teach that because I think that, like I said earlier, it's such a great entry point. We are
Absolutely.
actually that's one of the things I start saying, guess what? We're gonna learn about. It's something we walk around with literally under our noses all the time, right? It's our
Yeah.
breath. And
Yeah.
people are like, what is she saying? Really? It's there. And
Yeah.
then, all of a sudden I see everyone's like weight come off their shoulder, like, oh, everyone just took a breath in the class. Like, isn't that
Yes.
awesome? Right. So I think that breath work, and it's something I practice daily. And if I don't have time to sit there and do a long meditation now, it's pretty much 20 minutes twice a day. Some days it's only the once in the morning, it's very busy, but in the night, I'll try to have a little bit of that downtime,
Mhm.
even if it's not a traditional meditation, to just assess my life,
Yeah.
kind of assess my day.
It's interesting because you said, like, I keep my yoga mat right next to my bed. So when I taught kids yoga in Chicago, or if I taught someone who had never tried yoga before and they just started it, I was like, roll your yoga mat out and put it right next to your bed. It's the first and the last thing your feet hit. It's a physical reminder to get on your mat and practice whatever that looks like that day. You could just lay down on your mat, set a timer for 5 minutes and be quiet.
Yeah.
That's a practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I say that too, because I think it's right there, and I have it purposely there and then that little guilt thing in the back of my head will be like, you can't just jump over that.
Exactly. You're like, not touching it today.
But it's a reminder constantly that this is part of my day. And it's like, my door happens to like come in just like at its edge. So I always keep my door like wedged a certain way so it's not covering my mat, and like
Nice.
it's just like my whole day, my whole room revolves around that. And it's sacred. It is sacred. It's a part, like, wherever we can have access to it. And we all have stressful lives. It's not like I am somehow removed from it because I teach yoga,
Right.
breathwork, and meditation.
Right.
No, I think sometimes it's even more obvious, or sometimes maybe, the higher up is like, you can handle this. I'll give you a little more pressure.
Exactly.
Breathe through this at the stoplight. Here, try this one.
Yeah. Now I've got a question for you. It's still on the breath work path, because for me, like, breath is your largest communication tool between your body and your brain, period. Like, that's how you get to regulate your nervous system, how you react and you respond. But Natalie and I have this conversation quite often, because we see a lot of people with like diastasis recti, right? Where they have the separation of the muscle, and they're having a really hard time, like, kind of finding that connection with their core muscles, especially like those people usually come to Pilates, right? And so the first thing
Why don't you take a second and describe what it is?
Oh, so a diastasis recti is when, most of the time it happens like with women, like
often with pregnancy.
like pregnancy, where you're basically your rectus abdominis, your front layer of your core muscles, and then separate and leave open a space that is where your abdominal cavity is. So it's kind of like when people say, like, there's a big soft kind of canal when they're laying down, that they can put their fingers in between like their navel and their pubic bone, like any kind of a split or separation.
Looks like a split, feels like a split.
Feels like a split.
But it can happen to men too. It can happen outside of pregnancy, but kind of the classic thing that we say is a woman who's had one or maybe several pregnancies, and her body has just kind of taken a beating.
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens.
Yeah.
But like, I've had a bunch of clients. So the first thing I do is I'm like, okay, let me see you breathe. Because 9 chances out of 10, they're not taking a full breath out at all, like ever.
Yeah. No one.
No one. Yeah, exactly. And even to the point where I will do a lot of like, push the air out, like make that sound with your breath, like really force the air out. Imagine someone's going to punch you in the gut. Like, ooh, like, what are you going to do to push the air out? And I try to give all these different like imagery or examples for them. And then I'm like, okay, try it. And they're like, like, whoa.
Yeah. Like they're completely not connected. They're not connected to their muscles, not connected to their breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's just like you said, how the muscles kind of go, they either have fatigue, or they wear out, or they tear. All these things that happen if we're not using them, or they get overstretched, right? Like with pregnancy and things like that. But the same thing with the breath. It's like, actually, we're trained to like hold your breath, suck it in. Here's a photo, like suck it in. You almost like raise your shoulder. All of it's like distortion. And we think, oh, this makes us confident. People like, hold your head up high, like your nose. You know what?
Yeah.
It's like, just relax, get in your body. That's what makes you confident.
Yeah.
But yeah, the breath. I think the most simple one that I start with almost always. Sometimes I'm just meeting someone for the first time over Zoom, or it's like simple something in the classroom. I'm not familiar with everyone, and I'm teaching like a little bit of breath work, and I just tell them we're going to just do this like, full yogic breath. Okay. So it's just like, we're going to do the full expansion of your belly. Like, imagine it like a balloon. And I've taught this from 6-year-olds to 60-year-olds. It doesn't matter. I will just talk about it like this, using that imagination, just like you said, and just like expanding your belly as full as you can. And then when you let go, like pulling your navel kind of in towards your spine, and just taking that at your own pace, walking it really slow with them, and then bring up to the chest. The next breath is like, also realize you brought it to your belly, filled up like a balloon. Now expand up to your chest.
Mhm.
Feel that
Yeah,
Nice.
you
expanding
don't
in
need to
all
have a
directions,
clinical
like
problem to
simple.
be.
Right,
Yeah,
right. I mean, most people are not
No,
breathing properly
absolutely.
at all.
they're
I
not.
love,
Yeah.
there was a younger girl, she was in her 30s that came into the club and was getting ready to take or was actually in a yoga class, and it was a heated yoga class. And I was walking down the hallway and during the class, and I see her sitting out in the hallway during class. And I was like, okay, just see if she's okay. So I just kind of let her be waved. And then I went to my office, and a couple of minutes later, I walked back by and she's still sitting there. And she didn't look any different, like energetically, physically, nothing. So I said, hey, you okay? Is there anything I can do to help you? And she's like, I can't get my heart rate to go down. And her heart rate was
Wow.
at 186.
Oh
And she
my
had been
gosh.
sitting
Wow.
there for a while, like at least 5-10 minutes. So I immediately was like, come with me. And I brought her into my office. I laid her down on the floor, put her legs up the wall. And I said, breathe out for 5, breathe in for 3. Breathe out for
Yeah.
5, breathe in for 3. Within 3 breaths, her heart rate went down to 113. And she's like, I thought I had to breathe in more. So she was breathing in more, thinking she
Oh,
She's
needed
hyperventilating.
more
yeah.
oxygen, but was actually fueling the
Mhm.
sympathetic nervous system.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was
Yes.
like
Yeah.
crazy. And I'm thinking, so I mean, if you're obviously an expert with breath work. One of my favorite books is by James Nestor, The Breath.
Yes.
Oh my God,
The
I'm
breath.
obsessed with that book. I like love him
Yes.
so much. And what he talks about with breath really is such a tangible, easy way to explain to like the average person, the average, human that walks around is like, hey, breathe out more, right? Let go more.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that I was reading something, maybe it was in that book as well, that was talking about how we are like overbreathers, right? Like
Hmm.
that whole idea, like she was hyperventilating herself. She's trying to breathe like maybe more rapidly or whatever
Yeah.
was happening for her, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of the things I try to remember, even when I'm teaching just meditation. And I'll just remind people and be like, each inhalation energizes your body,
Yes.
and each exhalation relaxes it. So just like if you think I need more energy, maybe I'm feeling like really low and I need to get out of bed, like deepen those inhalations, get that prana, that life force going for you.
Hmm.
And then if there's too much going on, you feel stressed and you need to relax, just kind of lengthen that exhalation. I think I heard like 4 breaths per minute,
Yeah.
5 breaths. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
Really?
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing that said, I
Holy
remember
cow.
like there's a yogi, a bogey, and a rogi, right? So it's like,
Yes, yes,
like
yes.
there's the
I never
dabbler.
know what you're going to
I know,
say.
but I didn't
I'm
make
like,
this up. I didn't make it up. This is
I
like,
heard this.
yeah, this is something. So it's like, and if you compare like a horse to a dog to a elephant or a
I don't know.
tortoise, I
I have
think,
no
and it's
idea.
like a horse has like a certain number of breaths. Like, I don't know, I'm going to make it up. I think it's like 12 to 24, right? And then a dog is like around the same or maybe a little bit less. And then you get to like a tortoise, and a tortoise is like 1 to 3 breaths per minute. And like a human can be anywhere from, 8 to 20 breaths per minute. So it's like, I remember when I first heard that, the yogi, the bogey, the rogi, I was like, oh, I want to be the yogi. I want to be able to do 1 to 3 breaths a minute. And I trained myself for years to be able to do that and to be able to regulate, even to the point where I used to watch my heart rate. And I would be really, really hot and sweaty from a class. And then I go, okay, you only have 3 breaths in this 1 minute. And how are you going to get through it? And how are you going to calm your heart rate down instead of making it more stressed?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really cool. I love it so much. Breath work to me is like the most unifying way to get someone to feel what they need to feel at that moment in their body, right? And it's
Yeah.
not me directing them or telling them or making them do anything. It's just like breathe the right way for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, we talk about breath is a key connection to your emotional
Mhm.
state. Like if you think about that, we breathe a certain way when we're crying. It's like, and we're excited, like your breath when you're happy and joyful is like barely even you can feel it. You're
Yeah.
sad, it's sobbing. It's there. So you can actually modify it to help you to take control of your emotions once you understand and you learn it properly. So it's
It's so cool.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
what do you find as far as like when you're working with somebody that's new, that's never tried breath work before, or, may not have that connection with their body? What are some breath works practices that you'll share with them kind of in the beginning? I know you said kind of that yogi breath and that
Yeah.
deep diaphragmatic breathing. Are there any like little tips and tricks that you'll give people?
Those ones are big ones. I think Ujjayi breath is really hard sometimes in the beginning, but if you teach it properly, like it's an ocean sound or,
Mhm.
just kind of giving them this access. I try to not give them too many counts. I feel like people, and I'm a counter. Okay. I'll tell you, I'm a counter with
Yeah.
my breath work and my practices. I love to follow that rhythm and it works great for me. But I also think that you have to kind of let it drop off a little bit.
Yeah.
So just noticing, like just asking them to just notice what's happening with their breath before even you're asking them to modify it, change it or vary it, the rhythm of it. Just like, oh, where is it? Where am I feeling my breath? Is it in my nose? Like, is it also in my throat? Do I
Mm.
feel it coming to my chest? Do I feel it in my belly? Do I feel it anywhere else? Like if there's pain in your body, my knee hurts, like taking deep breaths with that conscious awareness to my knee
Mhm.
helps to alleviate that. I'm not obviously my breath is not going to my knee realistically, right? But you're
Yeah.
kind of like oxygenating your life, I think, in
Yeah.
some ways, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Intention is everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
So I know like we haven't done like the normal kind of path of like, because you're not our normal person that has like yoga found it like, well, no, like she hasn't found yoga like, in her 30s or 40s or whatever.
Right.
This was a lived experience, and this is something that you've now kind of taken into probably like a very beautiful career and like being able to live in the passion and the joy of what works in your body and sharing it with others. Like, when we all went through teacher training, it's like I remember thinking like, well, I don't know if I'm going to teach or not. Like I don't know if I'm going to be good at this. Like
Yeah, me
it's a
too.
lot, and then it was like once I kind of got all of the goodies and was like, oh no, I have to. Like I was scared, but I was like, I have to do this. Like, what am I supposed to do? Just keep all this knowledge to myself? Like, no, I have to share this with other people. And it was very vulnerable and it was scary for me, for sure. Just being up in front of people and having them listen to me and, watch me or, try to do a pose. And then I'm trying to articulate my words so that they can get into that pose, smooth, efficient, without doubt, without worry, without limits, and
Yeah.
I just feel like you're a very good example of how you've been able to kind of take the things that you love and do them as a career and make other people feel a little bit better than the way that they found them. So with
Well,
that,
thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
With that being said, what can others learn from your story?
Yeah, and I do feel like yoga, I do keep finding yoga. I know you're like, some people find yoga at a certain point, and I think that it's been that journey for me. Like at every
Mm,
level, it's been something. Okay, that was yoga, then it was mindfulness, meditation, breath work, all of that. So I feel like it's something that I do keep finding over and over again in my
yeah,
life.
yeah,
The mindfulness is
yeah,
always like flowing in some way. But I would say that to remind people that, your body remembers how to come home. You don't have to be perfect. It doesn't, I even say, like, maybe you don't even have to be so consistent. You just need to be willing to meet yourself,
hmm,
like where you are. Healing is possible, peace is possible. You already have what you need
yeah,
inside of you. Yoga gives you the way to return to it. And I think that it's not just a trend, it's a living tradition and deserves like, practice it in a way that you can honor the origins, make it part of your modern life as well. And I hope people approach yoga with that curiosity, that reverence, and a willingness to learn about not just the roots, but themselves.
yeah.
And then so that they can deepen their practice and their connection to each other and themselves and like the whole world. Right.
Hmm.
So I think that's my wish.
I think that's great. I wonder too, like, I always worry about being culturally inappropriate with, with the yogic practice, right? I try my best to, if I don't know how to say it in Sanskrit, I will not say it, like I will try my best. I don't say namaste at the end of my class. I just say peace. I say namaste when I start because I feel
Yay.
like is that right? Am I
Yes,
right?
that's correct. Actually, yes,
Yay.
absolutely.
All right.
That's correct.
I've been,
Yeah.
well, and Mia helped me with this because Mia's like, I don't think that it's something you're supposed to say at the end of class. Like, I think it's a greeting. And it's like, I see the light and the love in you. And I recognize and I honor and I respect that light and the love in you. And so I still say something similar, but at the end I say peace. And it's funny because you'll hear like, namaste. Like people like want to say
They want
namaste
to.
It's
at
been
the
a
end.
thing
Hello.
for
It's
decades.
it's a greeting of hello. So you saying it at the start makes sense. It's not like at the end we're gonna go, hi.
Yeah,
It's been
exactly.
an hour with you.
I wonder
hey.
how it became a thing.
Yeah, why did it become like that?
Just
I
decades
have
of
no
classes.
idea. I think it just is that like, okay, here's a word. This is what people use as a greeting,
Yeah.
right? So maybe nobody really told anyone that greeting was a welcoming greeting. But yeah, there's a lot of mantras that you can use that are like, at the end you can say Om Shanti. That means like, right, the
Yeah.
peace. Peace is perfect. I think that's beautiful. And I think that it should be, you should leave each teacher like with their own greeting, what they feel comfortable, what makes sense for them, not just like a cutout thing that, makes it look like it's honoring the culture. Because if
Right.
you understand
Right.
the culture, obviously it's a greeting of hello.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's perfect. You're doing great.
Good,
I think
good.
that's so sweet.
Well,
Thank you.
I know, but I do feel like it's really important. And I feel like too, I don't want the roots of the practice to be lost due to capitalism. Right.
Yeah, it's important.
And I get a lot of people, I kind of go back and forth with this too. Like I teach a class that's yoga with weights. Right. And I've had lots of yogis say, oh, I can't believe you're doing that in a yoga studio. And I'm like, but they're breathing and they're moving and they're doing it mindfully. And there is a beginning in silence and there is a warm up and there is a shavasana at the end of class. There is a full 5 minutes of quiet.
Yeah, I know there's a full shavasana.
And I'm like, so I make sure that I'm doing my best to honor, but also know that like, hey, we're in the West and they want weights and they want to get their butts kicked.
Well, I don't think there's a problem with progress, if I can use the word progress, but certainly change as things go through different cultures. There
Adaptation.
absolutely
Right.
adaptation's a better word, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But absolutely, like if namaste says hello, let's not say it at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
yes. And I think, I agree with you. And I think you're right. It doesn't have to be perfect,
Right,
but you can be reverent and then just
Sure.
tracing back.
That's
ask
a good way to
questions,
put
stay
it.
curious, like you're doing that. And I think that's what's really important. And, I think yoga, one of the big things is we're not just doing yoga, we're becoming more human, right?
Yes.
Through it. So like that whole experience, that whole understanding, obviously we've all trained knowing the Patanjali Yoga Sutras and like understanding what that means and like just reminding, or like sometimes I'll reread parts that maybe
Yes.
I haven't, connected with. And so that's why I said I keep coming back to yoga.
Yes.
Oh, this is what they meant. Oh, now this means something different to me now in my midlife.
Totally.
than,
Yeah,
a decade
absolutely.
ago, right?
Yes.
So
Totally. No, I think it's interesting because it's like when you experience yoga and you kind of enjoy it and you deepen, you're always a student. Like my
Yes.
practice and the way that I see my practice has metamorphosis, evolved, changed, adapted, whatever into my, now I'm 50 compared to when I was in my 20s. And it's like such a cool thing. But I feel like I always want to make sure that, as far as me being a yoga teacher, that I don't walk away from kind of the heart of it, the roots of it, the essence of it, which is not just the physical practice. There's 7 other limbs. There's all different, practices.
Asana's just the one.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's 1/8 of it.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I think you're doing it. And I think it is in remembering those roots and tracing it back. And it's not limiting it. Actually, it's liberating it.
It is.
It's
It
more
is.
like bringing that to the forefront. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. That's sweet.
Honestly, to return back directly to the class with weights in it, it becomes this bridge. So for me, yoga, like you said, yoga is coming home. And so I get to broaden the type the ways that I take care of my body. I come home to this place that feels familiar, and there's a new element to it to help me take care of my body. But the opposite is also true.
Yeah.
You have clients who are comfortable with the idea of a weighted exercises using weights and repetitions, but because there's breath work, because there's shavasana, because there's silence, silent meditation, they get introduced to things that they might not have tripped
That's a good
over
point.
or
Yeah, that's a good
tried.
Huge point too. I really do believe that is kind of like when we commodify, capitalize, try to make money off of this, way of living is really a slippery slope, right? And really staying with the idea set that like yoga is for everybody because everybody is different. So like one of the things that, and I would love your opinion on this, and then we'll wrap it up because I know I keep going off these little tangents. This is my problem. I always do this because I'm
loving it.
I love talking to you. You've just been such a treat to talk to and learn from. But like knowing that, you have all of these different practices when I'm at a place that I work or, in the past, and they say, well, we do it this way. Like it's this way. And I literally, that's when I'm like, I want to be the rebel, be like, no, we don't.
I think this comes to a bigger question that, of course, yoga, keeping flow and peace and everything, in mind. But I think it's about really owning our own practice. Like I teach mindfulness in high schools. People are like, how do you do that? And I said, I have a real conversation with I have great directors where I teach. And I tell them, this is what I do. Me teaching art is about this also. And, I'm not going to say it's meditation. I'm not going to say any words, woo woo. We're not going to, even I'm not going to go deep into breath work. It's going to be very, I'm trauma informed. I give them all the details and my credentials so they understand that I know what I'm doing here. And then I'm like, it's just going to be a little thing. And they actually see and I'm like, try it. If you hate it, this is my style, right? So maybe going in and being like, this is who I am. This is what it means for me to teach, owning it, feeling strong and powerful. As women, we need to step into those kind of roles more. And I think that this is a great place. Like, this is what it's important to me. And try it out. If you hate it, then I'll modify with you, or we can talk about it, or I can, do your way. And I'm pretty sure if you're really genuinely authentic, it's really coming from your soul.
Yeah.
Adrienne, I think that nobody's going to say, they're going to find you more enlivened and you're not, kind of being compressed down.
Right.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. I think it's right. I think that it's just so interesting to me being that I've taught at different studios, in Chicago, now in Texas, and kind of seeing the different lineages and how the lineages have kind of like gone in these different paths and different like waterways, right? And just kind of seeing like, hey, at the end of the day, like it's yoga, right? Like this is not something that you own and we can only do it this way. Yoga is something where we have to be able to stick and move and pick it up and take it away, put it down and come back to it again, right? It's this constant learning experience. And it's just one of the biggest tools in my toolbox for having a happier, healthier life.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right about it.
Oh, Rubina, I'm so glad we got to talk to you. This was so enlightening, so much fun. You have such a great heart, and I really am excited for all the great things that you're bringing to the world with yoga and mindfulness and breath work. So give us, our listeners, all the places that they can find you and reach out and contact you.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me here. It's been such a great pleasure to deep dive into all these things that are so meaningful and making an impression on changing the world, I think, one person at a time.
Absolutely.
And with yoga. You can find me online at theinnerdesign.com. So it's theinnerdesign.com. And also on Instagram, I'm very active. I answer my own. You can always message me directly. And my handle is at @theofficialrubina. And so no AI, you'll get me if you message me.
Great.
And so, I'd love to. I'm on LinkedIn as well, Rubina Chadha. And I'm looking forward to staying in contact and, anybody who's going on this yoga journey, who's ask questions. I'd love to hear, their experiences as well. So reach out.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We really
Thank
appreciate
It
it.
was
you.
wonderful to talk to you, Rabina.
Yes.
Thanks. Likewise, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.